Laura here with MyVirtual.Lawyer and Legal Talk Tuesdays. I am here today to talk about some family law things that we know are happening right now and coming up this month. We're past the holiday season, and that means one big thing in the world of family law lawyers is that divorces kind of start pouring in. People are usually surprised to learn that January is one of the biggest months when people file for divorce, but it's post-holidays, it's, you've lasted throughout the year, and maybe things just are a little bit more clear in your mind. And so January really is one of the biggest months that people file for divorce. Today, we'd like to talk to you about some things that you can do to prepare yourself and protect yourself if you're thinking about getting a divorce. Our goal here at MyVirtual.Lawyer is to help you work with your spouse to come to an agreed solution. Sometimes that doesn't happen either because of hard feelings or bad actions, but the things that I'm going to talk about today are things that you can do either in either scenario. If you guys are agreeing on everything, or if you're worried about there being some issues, these are things that you really need to think about and have at the forefront of your mind if you're considering filing for divorce. First, we'll talk about kids. Not everybody has kids, and that's fine. You can ignore me for the next minute or two, but I'm one of those people, so I'm also not married. But if you do have children and they're under the age of 18 and you're thinking about getting a divorce, that's kind of going to be a big part of the situation that you have to deal with the kids. So you need to think really long and hard without your personal emotions, if at all possible. So it doesn't matter if your spouse cheated on you or if you're mad at them for spending too much money or whatever it is. When it comes to the children, you need to try to set your personal emotions aside and think about what's best for your children during the breakup. Big thing to consider is, where will the children live? If they live primarily with one parent and the other has visitation, what does that look like? Who's going to provide financial support? So in a situation where one parent is the primary person the kids live with, the other parent has to provide child support. So that's something to kind of consider. How frequently, all that kind of stuff, attorney can help you navigate all those questions. Big thing to keep in mind too is that Arkansas has a default set for joint custody. So if you can't agree on custody arrangements, visitation, child support, things like that, and you let a judge decide for you, it's never a good idea. Obviously, kind of like I mentioned before, bad actions, hard emotions, that kind of things, it tends to get there a lot. But the best that you can do is sit down and talk about the kids and agree about custody, visitation, child support, because otherwise the judge gets to decide, and judges have a default in the back of their mind that joint custody, true joint custody with half time with one parent, half time with the other parent, is their default. It's in the best interest of the children. So an attorney can help you navigate all these questions, offer advice and opinions based on their personal experience. So just kind of keep in mind that kids are going to be a big deal in the situation that you're kind of contemplating about filing for divorce. Another thing to think about and keep in the forefront of your mind is if you own a house. So we're talking about property now. And when I say property right now, I mean what's called real property. That's the legal term for your house, if you own any land, whatever it might be, that's an actual physical place that is on land. So do you own a house? Do you own land? Who's going to stay in the house? Can either of you afford to stay in the house alone? Can the person who's staying in the house, let's say that it's the wife who's going to stay in the house with the kids, can she afford to refinance the house? It's never a good idea to own property with somebody that you're not married to. And I know that's really difficult right now, post 2016. Refinancing is very difficult. Also post 2008 with the housing crashes and all that kind of stuff. So a good idea if you own property, if you own a house and you're considering divorce, is to call your lender and talk about what your options are for your particular mortgage. Sometimes I've had clients who've been able to just take the spouse off of the house, off of the mortgage, so that they can continue it on their own. Sometimes you do have to refinance, and that might mean a significant amount more money. Interest rates may have gone up a lot. So it's a good idea to go ahead and kind of on the front end, call your lender, call your mortgage person, and just kind of see what your options are in a divorce. Another thing to kind of think about is there any other land? Arkansas is a really big state, and we have a lot of land here. So you may be surprised with how many people have a small plot of land or an interest in land, a lot of trees and logging and all that kind of stuff. So if you don't know about these are questions that you need to ask, and make sure that all of the property is known about, everything's known about, and you can decide what needs to be addressed besides just the house that you live in. A third thing to think about, and this one is a big one too, just kind of like kids, is money. So money is kind of one of those things that can be even trickier than dealing with children in a breakup. Money issues are oftentimes, really common in marriages, and it doesn't matter if the money issues are what drove you to want to file for a divorce, or you think that there may be an issue in the future. There are things that we suggest you do right away if you're thinking about getting divorced, and that way you can have a better idea and mindset on getting your money separated. So number one is open a separate banking account. If all of your accounts are joint, then you need to have one in your own name. It's still considered marital money, but it's going to be easier for you to pull from that account that's only in your name, and you have better control and tracking on spending in that account. Joint accounts, they can be dealt with in the divorce itself, but it's a good idea to have your own account so that you have better access and control of money that's coming from your paycheck. And don't be that jerk who, if your spouse is still putting money in the joint account, don't go take their money, try to draw from your account that you've opened. Excuse me, this lovely weather, my cough that I feel like you guys have seen me have for months now, it's popping back up with this lovely weather that we're having in Central Arkansas. This is a situation that we see a little bit more than we'd all like to think happens. But if you have a spouse who has money issues and maybe is not super honest about money, consider putting a credit freeze on your name. That way they can't open up new credit cards and things like that in your name or in joint with both of your names, because that's a hassle that you have to deal on the back end. But if you put a credit freeze on your name and your social security number and everything for applying for new credit, then there's nothing that can be done in retaliation or anything like that once you actually file for divorce. So, excuse me. So that's a really good idea to go ahead and have in the back of your mind if there are issues, or you think there might be issues with your spouse trying to get credit cards and things like that in your name, because it's a lot harder to deal with on the back end than it is to just kind of stop it from happening on the front end. So those are just a few tips and tricks about what you need to think about when you're considering filing for divorce, or even if you already have. These are things that you really need to be thinking about and talking about with your spouse, or if you can't talk to them about it because of, again, bad actions or whatever it might be, then things that need to be in the forefront of your brain. No one likes to talk about divorce. We live in a state that I've known people who don't even tell their grandparents that they're divorced because it's too difficult. They don't believe in it. It's against their religion, whatever it might be. But you should not be ashamed or embarrassed when you're working through these emotions. It's a real thing. It's better to get divorced than to stay in a really negative and toxic relationship, whether it's just because you guys don't want to be married anymore, or if there are some bad things happening in the marriage. It's best to keep a level head while you're working through your what the best solution is for yourself and your family. Try not to let your emotions be too involved in the legal part of things. Obviously, your emotions were involved in the decision making to get a divorce, but keeping a level head is the best, because it's going to save you time and money and headache and heartache and all that kind of stuff if you can approach things rationally and just kind of set yourself up for the positivity of the future as opposed to sitting in the negative of the current moment. So thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time on this Monday or Tuesday morning. I have no idea what day it is. Please join us next week when Brooke will be back for our Legal Talk Tuesdays. We'll be here again on Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. and we'll see you next week. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.